the video is just like, it's so mean. All of it is just so mean. I was watching Disney Plus the other day, and I was watching my favorite TV show from childhood, which was Lizzie McGuire. I haven't seen it since I was 8 to 12 years old. I feel like that's when it was really big, and I was so excited. I just put on the first episode, and by the end of it, I was quite at unease and a little bit, actually greatly dismayed at what I saw. And the entire premise of the first episode of one of the most influential shows during my childhood, and probably so many other women's young childhood, that's a little bit redundant, so many other young women's childhood, was about women being mean to other women. It was about girls being mean to other girls. It was essentially Kate, the mean girl, being pit against Lizzie's best friend, and while simultaneously also Lizzie, because you know they're affiliated. And it was just a full-on cat fight. Like, there was prank wars, being mean to each other, and the catalyst of this even fight was through a catty remark of saying that this girl stuffed her bras. So I was so dismayed and saddened to know that this was the type of television programming, and they call it programming for a reason. It's being downloaded into us. No matter how fictitious TV or film might be, this is mainstream media. This is something that's being digested and consumed by the masses. So all of this, that one episode of Lizzie McGuire, then led me to write this Instagram post, and if you follow my Instagram, you've seen it. It says, "Conscious sisterhood. I was never taught sisterhood. As young women, we were indoctrinated with the idea that other women were our competition, that one woman's success, prettiness, thinness, or intelligence took away from our own. From seeing young Disney Channel stars continually pitted against each other in media, to cementing the idea that a catty mean girl must exist in all high school narratives and teen movies, we were told to gossip and tear one another down, to not be like other girls. It's only through my adulthood and my own life experience that I've learned success is never a zero-sum game. The more you support, the more to come around, that another woman's strength and beauty only highlights my own, and that the ultimate strength behind our universal sisterhood, regardless of biology or sex, lies behind our ability to be incredibly vulnerable and compassionate. Dedicated to all the beautiful, resilient women in my life. Hashtag conscious sisterhood." So what is catty? Google gave me the definition: deliberately hurtful in one's remark, spiteful. For example, these are sarcastic digs, passive-aggressive comments, thinking that other women are your competition in an unhealthy manner, identifying that you're not like the other girls, that being not like women is a good thing, is a positive thing, because women are so terrible. All your friends are guys. This is slut shaming. This is a lot. It's a lot to unpack, and I will be the first to tell you that I have definitely said some of these statements. I'm not like the other girls. A YouTuber called Tiffany Ferg actually has a video on I'm not like the other girls ideology, and how she just really breaks down all of that. It's a great video. It mildly inspired this video, so I would definitely check it out, and I'll leave it linked down below. How has this been enforced? By TV and movie tropes, consistently and consecutively, the Disney Channel, the very popular cult classic Mean Girls. It influenced an entire generation of women not to be able to say thank you to a compliment because of this one scene. I could not say thank you to another woman because I was so afraid that it was a fake compliment. I can't tell you how many women I know are not able to take a compliment because of one scene in a movie. The tabloids, a lot of those magazines like Star and People were always talking about, you know, Hillary Duff stealing this man, or Lindsay Lohan being with Aaron Carter, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, blah blah blah, being pit against one another, when I had never seen Shia LaBeouf versus Kyle Massey, or Justin Timberlake and Usher being at war with one another. It was always women pit against other women. And while of course there are toxic male gender norms and also heteronormative ideals that are placed upon non-binary people that are really toxic and ideal, I think the one about women is so important because it's a lot of women also perpetuating this onto other women, but we'll talk about why that is in a few moments. But so famous catty mean girls or characters that you probably grew up with and that you probably know: Regina George, of course, Kate Saunders if you watched Lizzie McGuire, what else, Blair Waldorf. I've never really watched classical Blair Waldorf. And honestly, I'm gonna throw this out there. There are very much so catty, mean girl characteristics to a lot of mainstream celebrities that are prominent today. Taylor Swift, so much of her earlier work that predates this new white feminist agenda was a lot about pitting women against other women. Taylor Swift to me is a perfect example of someone who perpetuates victim mentality while at the same time simultaneously making other girls the enemy because you are different or the outlier and therefore are inherently better or superior. For example, her huge hit single, You Belong With Me, it goes from the idea of this person wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts, she's your captain, and I'm on the bleachers. And I will admit, I totally was a Taylor Swift fan during the Red era in 1989. So this is, and I also believe that women are not to blame or at fault for any of this. I'm just using all of these as like cultural examples of where we see this catty mean girl trope kind of out and alive in modern day society, or in at least mainstream media. So You Belong With Me is the perfect embodiment of that. I'm not like the other girls, therefore I'm inherently different and better and more superior to them, or than them, superior to them. One of the biggest examples of catty mean girlness is also slut shaming. It's also putting women down for their sexuality when men are totally not. So if you see a little theme here, it's all going to lead to the patriarchy, but we'll get to that in a bit. So slut shaming is a huge thing, and I think Taylor Swift, in one of her songs called Better Than Revenge, it literally goes, she's not a saint, she's not what you think, she's an actress, whoa, she's better known for the things she does on the mattress. Soon she's gonna find stealing other people's toys on the playground will make you many friends in mind. Bad Blood is supposedly about Katy Perry and her just having a feud, and I actually genuinely loved Bad Blood until I realized that it was about a woman. The reason why this all is like catty mean girlness is because it insinuates that like women's value is attached to their sexuality and sexual activity, and that that women are not your friend. Whereas like I'm sure that women have not been her friend, but it's not because they're women, it's because maybe their own character flaws, but it has nothing to do with a specific gender. The girl is not an awful person because she's a girl, she just might be an awful person. And to talk about what she does on the mattress and what kind of skirts she wears is completely invalid. Those are not the very so reasons why this person has been unkind to you, Taylor Swift. I did watch Taylor Swift's newest documentary called Miss Americana, and I was pleased to say that it seemed like she did a lot of self-introspection while she was away, because she had this to say.
I'm trying to be as educated as possible on how to respect people, on how to deprogram the misogyny in my own brain, toss it out, reject it, and resist it. Like, there is no such thing as a slut. There is no such thing as a bitch. There is no such thing as someone who's bossy. There's just a boss.
Now make it intersectional. Another example that I remember listening to a lot during my emo phase was Misery Business by Paramore. We also listened to this yesterday when we had like an emo carpool karaoke, and I listening to that song, I was appalled that I was singing this stuff in 2007. And let me just remind you, so it goes, well, it's one of the most slut-shamey, most like pitting women against women songs I have ever heard during this phase. It's like, whoa, I never meant to brag, I got him where I want him now, it was never my intention to brag, steal it all away from you. And there's a lot of like stealing and theft that has to do with men that I also think is extremely problematic and toxic. Second chances, they don't ever matter, people never change. Once a whore, you're nothing more. I'm sorry, that'll never change. Well, there's a million other girls who do it just like you, looking as innocent as possible to get to who. Well, I refuse. And if you watch the video, I remember being like, well, it came out in I think 2007, what is it, 2020, 13 years ago. I was probably like 12. I was like 12 at the time, and I remember thinking like, wow, of course there's like a mean girl, but she is equally as mean to her. Like I think at the end she de-stuffs her bra and then like slaps her face, getting rid of all of the makeup. And it's just a lot of unkindness treated with a lot of unkindness. It's the video is just like, it's so mean. All of it is just so mean. So who is to blame for all of this? Now, I want to use the word blame very lightly because blaming other people or other instances allows you to live in this victimhood mentality, which then gives away your power. It leaves you in a state of disempowerment. That's totally not the aim of this entire video. This is more so the root cause of it. Where does this come from? Where does this stem from? This all falls under the beautiful umbrella of the patriarchy. This is not to be confused with misandry. Not about hating men, blaming or resenting men. It's more so that the idea of, this is a beautiful graphic that I remember reading when I was like 15 on Rookie, which is an old publication that I was a huge fan of by Tavi, Gevinson, a very precocious 11-year-old fashion blogger who made a beautifully feminist publication that was very new wave for its time. And the diagram goes, I do this thing and it's kind of cool, some dude. But this girl does it too. What if she's better at it than I am? Then I would be worse than a girl at something. This is humiliating, emasculating. There's threatens the size of my penis. I've got it. I will compare it to other girls only. If you compare girls to other girls, they will not be compared to boys like me. Hence, there's no way I can be worse than a girl at something. Society catches on. The Secret Valley High book series, Disney Channel. A lot of this stems from internalized misogyny, the idea that femininity is something that's wrong or negative. Women are so often identified with such negative characteristics. Women are emotional, are fragile, are weak, are illogical. Women are catty again. It's the idea that if we're too busy fighting one another, then how will we ever take down the oppressor or the patriarchy? We don't. So it's a beautiful thing that the patriarchy has put into place to keep us all down. I think this can be really easily exemplified in the idea that, when a man cheats, the women fight against one another. But who is the genuine true issue here? It is the man who played not only one of you, but both of you, under this assumption that, you guys don't know about each other. If one or the other party knows about the other woman, obviously then you're at fault. And I understand why you would fight then. But even then, the issue is the man who's facilitating this. The issue is the man who's exercising his power, his dominance in such a way over two women. And I think if you want to live in this idealized world where women have no need for reparations for what's been happening to us, while we have made a lot of strides in women's rights, I would like to remind you that a woman's body, and also just a human's body, a person's body, is not a political playground. It is not something that should be politicized. And yet women's bodies are consistently, historically, have always been treated as such, as a political playground. The fact that abortion can still be illegal and is this body of mine is not up for debate in a political courtroom up in DC. This is my body, and what I choose to do with it is my choice. And I believe that every woman who has been wrongfully impregnated through rape, through sexual assault, has every right to do whatever she chooses. And even if that's not the case, has still every right to do whatever she chooses with her body. Now, it would be such a different story if men could get impregnated, wouldn't it? And in 2019, a woman still only earns 79 cents to a man's dollar. Patriarchy allows women to compete against one another because it takes away from the real competition, which is like men, or the competition for equal rights, by the way. It's kind of like I was in college at UCLA. I took a lot of classes on the history of Korea and the division of Korea and the possible reconciliation of the Koreas. And many historians and political advocates who study this said that honestly, many of the East Asian countries, such as Japan and China mainly, don't really support or are excited for, essentially, for the reconciliation of the Koreas, because economically they would be such a powerhouse. Also socially and politically, it would be a totally different animal to deal with. And as messed up as it sounds almost beneficial for the other countries, for the Koreas to be, I'm Korean by the way, this is why I mentioned this, for the Koreas to not be united. And in that same way, the more that we oppress people and oppress people within their own minority groups, within their own sections and their communities, the slower that they are to really identifying the actual problem at hand, or the majority party that has the most power in hand, I guess, or not the problem, but more so maybe the dominant party with the most privilege and power. Though we can point fingers, I think that the main point of what I'm trying to say with this is that it's not our fault. We don't have to take blame for this. It's not our fault that we have been unkind to other women, and it's not our fault that women have been unkind to us. It's a huge, larger ecosystem of issues and problems. This is to say that it's almost a natural, reactive, adaptive response to being treated unequally, to being discriminated against, to not earning the same amount of money for the same amount of work. Oppressed groups or minority groups have been the victim of a lot of discrimination and unkindness, and have been barred from many other opportunities and privileges as a dominant party. And so therefore there's going to be a lot of internalized anger, misogyny, resentment, and it comes out in different places. And I think that a lot of this behavior isn't naturally inherently female. I think this is what I read in a Sheryl Sandberg article about debunking the myth of catty women, and it says this behavior isn't inherently female. It's a natural way we react to discrimination where we belong to a non-dominant group. Fearing that their group isn't valued, some members distance themselves from their own kind. I'm not like other girls. They internalize cultural biases and avoid affiliating with groups that are seen as having low status, like women. This whole catty mean girl trope is almost similar to that of the extremely problematic and toxic trope of the angry black girl narrative. Now, black people have historically, politically, and systemically been marginalized and oppressed. It's very valid that such a group of people would be angry. It says that black people are inherently angry, where no, they're like the victims and have been oppressed for centuries, and therefore it is a very valid and natural response to having been treated that way, systemically, historically, again. And in that same way, this catty mean girl really perpetuates that the idea that women are inherently catty, are inherently evil, are inherently cruel to one another, when more so, it's a natural adaptive response to being oppressed by the patriarchy. What Sheryl Sandberg said is like, it's not inherently female, this behavior, because a lot of what I see as we've gotten older and as generations have progressed, obviously, because with the whole new idea of girls supporting girls and intersectional feminism, I do feel that women have become a lot kinder to one another, especially with conversations like these. But more so, I see that this becomes displaced in a lot of gay men, in the gay men community. There's a lot of internalized misogyny, a lot of unkindness to another, because gay men have also historically been oppressed and have been discriminated against and been treated unequally. So this behavior isn't inherently female. It's a natural response to being a part of the non-dominant party. My only issue with the Sheryl Sandberg thing is that she says that being catty is a myth. She says statistically that women in the workplace have been able to like grow or have been able to have more upward mobility through other women CEOs and stuff. But I also believe, I did read her book, Lean In. I do believe that it was a very white-centric, white feminist view. I realized that a lot of this is also women who have a mother wound, women who first felt unkindness from other women through their own mothers. While it's great to, debunk this catty woman in the workplace, I think it comes from a very white-centric place, because not only did my immigrant mother have to deal with the plight of migration and learning a whole new culture, she also had to deal with the oppression of just being a woman, on top of that being a racial minority. It's a lot of trauma and a lot of wounding and a lot of deep unpacking. So I think in the same way that we believe that, like my mom's mom had diabetes and my mom's mom had diabetes, there are like emotional, almost genetics that get passed down to us in a way, and what you don't heal obviously gets passed down to another. A lot of the women of color who have displayed a lot of, cattiness towards me, I noticed that they have their own, what I call mommy trauma. We all have like our own issues with our own mothers, and so many of our moms have not been healed and treated from how their moms have treated them. It starts at the home. It starts with your own mom. And in the same way, a lot of men have their own issues with, I think, their male relationships because of their father. Maybe an absent father, an abusive father, a critical father. I was bullied, but in the sense of like, I didn't allow myself to be bullied, but I was definitely the recipient I don't want to say victim because it just sounds so heavy, but I was a recipient of a lot of unkindness from other girls in school. I remember the day I got into UCLA, which is like a lot of people where I come from. It's like a predominantly Asian American community, very competitive about school, and UCLA is like somewhere you really want to go. I remember like one of the girls that didn't like me basically said, why do good things happen to bad people? Like, why did Amy get into UCLA? And I think one of the girls stole my lunch pails. And so this all brings me to how can we combat cattiness? How can we dismantle this? I think that the biggest issue is that cattiness, the reverse of it is not kindness in a fake way, because I think a lot of us are like,
oh, thank you so much, like you look so great too.
Or to retort back with some type of other cattiness. It's honestly neutrality. It's not doing anything, it's not saying anything, it's walking away, it's removing yourself from the room, it's not even engaging with cattiness. I think that's the true response, because all the while in high school, while they were trying to bully me, I think like sitting in the bathroom or like eating alone is seen as like really bad in American films. But honestly, I remember watching those and I'm like, that's a great idea. Like, I don't even have to sit with them if they're gonna talk poorly about me or gossip in front of me. I remember I sat in the ceramics room by myself a lot, and I worked on my ceramics because I took ceramics that year, and I didn't give them any response. When I heard them say things poorly about me, I never said, oh, like, well, Sarah's a bitch, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in toxic people. That's another thing. I believe in hurt people, people whose egos and insecurities have been very, very hurt in the past, or have been very, very examined and have been prodded and picked at by society, by other women, by mom, dad, whatever. I believe that we don't have toxic people, we have hurt people. So in that situation in high school, I just removed myself. I disengaged. I just chose to not be that person's friend. Like, I removed myself from the situation. So to combat cattiness or meanness, I think it's neutrality. It's coming from a place of neutralness, of not spewing hatred, of also not allowing them to treat you that way. So building stronger boundaries, removing yourself from the situation, disengaging. Something that I really stand by is do no harm but take no shit. And last but not least, the biggest way we can dismantle or combat cattiness is by simply deeply acknowledging the deep wounding and the hurt that has been caused to us by other women, by the hegemony, by society, by cultural standards. Once we acknowledge how deeply hurt we felt, it's only then can we truly heal from that. I am a true advocate that unkindness does not elicit more unkindness. It's a cycle of internalized misogyny, of oppression, of discrimination. So by acknowledging our own deep wounding and our own hurt, and by understanding that this is a huge ecosystem of ideologies and beliefs put into place, and that it's not our fault, it's only then that we can truly see women as our sisters, women as our allies. Someone is unkind to you, it is not because that person's gender is inherently bad. Like, if a woman is unkind to you, it is not because women are just unkind. Women are people, and people have so many complex characteristics and traits, and in their wounding hurt many other people. Remember, what you see in the world is what you have in your heart. Always think critically, my friends, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.